Hi, team. Welcome to Artist to Artist. I am so excited about having you both here on this podcast. This is a podcast where we're talking about art and culture and its relationship to spirituality and resistance and love and care, and how art can transform and does transform people, societies, and communities. And I really love the both of you and the work that you do separately, but I also love the work that you do collectively. So to start this conversation off, I would love for you to just introduce yourselves. Like, tell us more about who you are and the art that you make.
My name is Shahla Dorriz, and I'm a designer and costume designer and fashion designer, and also creative consultant for few new designers and fashion houses.
Thank you. And Ali Reza.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you, Patrisse, for having us on this. I feel like you're the only person
Yeah.
in the world who could get my mom and I in a room together and do a podcast of all things. But yeah, thank you, Patrisse. You're a
Of
light in
course.
our lives. um, my name is Ali Reza. I'm an artist. I have a research based practice with photo based and textile based kind of derivatives, often installation. I also am a writer and I do curatorial projects, amongst other things.
It's so good to have you both. So let's just get into y'all's practice. Like, Shala, when did you realize you were an artist? When did you realize you were a fashion designer? And when did you start working with textile? Can you take us back to that first memory you have was it when were you really young? Was it kind of a teenager? Tell us more about how you ended up being who you are today.
Absolutely. I always used to, when I was a child, I used to play with my dolls actually, and always put microphone in front of there as I was thinking like they're on a stage and singing. And I always wanted to design for entertainer on stage, and also, I've been watching my parents, I mean, my mom and grandma, in doing embroidery on textile and their traditional textile. And also, we had a village in back close to Sangesar and Shahmirzad, which is the villages that I see these beautiful women, and they're sitting and hand weaving on loom, and um, with goat and sheep fiber. So
Wow.
these were the things that from my childhood, and I always got inspired and on the textile at the beginning, because
Hmm.
we had this traditional textile and ancestor, uh, kind of fabrics that
Hmm.
my family used to carry, especially my mother and grandmother. And of course, I when the Iran was in revolution, I remember that my mother gave me all this textile on the suitcase and sent me out. I went to uh, Switzerland because my brother was studying there, and
Hmm.
also to Paris. I studied fashion, and actually, I had my first fashion show in Paris. And so I started from there. When then I came to United States, I went to a modeling school and a fashion merchandising school in San Francisco. It
Hmm.
was the name was Barbizon at the time. Barbizon School of Modeling, and
Hmm.
also Patricia Stevens modeling and fashion at that time. Uh, And then I met Reza Badi, and which he was producing Mission Impossible at the time, long time ago. And I don't know if you remember Mission Impossible
Of course,
and
yes.
Charlie's
Yes.
Angels. And
Yes.
so I met uh, Farah Fawcett, and I was really inspired because they wanted the dress that I was wearing, which I made it myself. You know, she wanted to wear it at the same seam, so they made me to take off the dress and wear something like a fabric around myself. So she wears it, and she was looking amazing, and she was, you know I was really inspired because at the end of her acting, she told me that, um, what did you do? Did you make? I said, I made it myself with a like a draping system, kind of.
Hmm.
I was always playing with fabrics, draping on
Hmm.
myself. And so she said, one day you're going to be a big designer, my friend. And I was only like 18 at the time.
That's an incredible story. I want to ask you a little bit more about that moment when your mom gave you the textiles to when you left Iran and your mom gave you the textiles. Did you realize like how special the textiles were before she gave them to you, or did you realize like when she gave them to you, oh, these are textiles that are really special and I need to hold on to them? Like when did you have that realization? Because that's like such a powerful imagery of like these textiles being handed to you to like take somewhere else to almost like save them and protect them.
Yes, I was watching them making embroideries on it, and they were all very historic fabrics, from
Hmm.
like 200 and 180-year-old fabric. And then she was doing embroidery on top of it, which I have it some in here in on my walls in my studio, that I framed it. And these are all done when she was like very young, at the age. And so I kept them. When I came to United States and I decided to follow up every time when I use a, my one of my couture. I use a piece of those fabrics in my collection. And like Terme and Suzanne Duzi Baluchestan, which is very famous needle pointed needle point from
Hmm.
Baluchistan, and also Qashqai, and all you know fabrics that are very famous. I was actually the first designer who promoted cultural fabric in Iran, in United States, and in the world, actually. Because
That's so beautiful.
before, they never respected these fabrics in Iran.
Hmm.
They always use it like on the floor, or as a tablecloth, or sleeping or doing something. And I discovered the beauty of all these fabrics, actually in the 90s. I
Hmm.
decide to promote Persian textile, and also my mother historic ancestor fabrics. I wanted it to bring it and show it to the world. So I went to each channel and explain all about this textile, so to let the world know about our culture.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Shala. That's just such a gorgeous history. And I've spent so much time with you and I didn't even know that. That's really beautiful. Ali Ressa, I want to go to you. Like, when did you realize you were an artist? Like you're raised. It's like beautiful to have like two generations of artists, right here. But like when did you start playing around with art, and when did you start realizing your own craft? And how did your mom influence it? Because I know she has deep influence.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for this. I grew up in a house where like I was literally coming home from school and the dining table, like there's just fabrics on the dining table and my mom's using it as a cutting table and she's like, "What do you think? This color or that color?" Like, I don't like what fabric would go good with this? And I'm like, "I just need to do my homework." I don't know. like and like I was kind of notorious in high school or like middle school where like friends would come over and they'd be like, "Oh, you're, like I'm afraid to sleep over because you have mannequins all over the house." Like there's just mannequins around the house that like folks are like, "What's happening here?" So I it's kind of like a you know unconventional way, but it was fun.
Yeah.
I think
Actually, the design that you were doing at that age, when I put it in my fashion show, that was the most popular one because he was so creative as well, and he was choosing a design like, at the age of what, 7 or 8,
I don't know.
he asked me to do asymmetrical design. So he said,
Already?
what about, the sleeve on this side and that side be different? Wouldn't that be exciting? I said, oh my God, yes.
Do you not have that memory, Ali Reza?
I have no idea. Like I believe her, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah. There was a lot of moments. There was a lot.
Yeah. What's a standout moment for you, like in your sort of like artistic practice, both with your mom, but also for yourself?
I really didn't know what my mom was doing
Mm.
until
What?
No, I meant like I didn't know like the magnitude and the importance of some of the garments that she was um, making and like how my mom was just like cutting up my grandmother and my great grandmother's fabrics and turning them into new sculptures and pieces. That didn't fully click and I didn't fully understand that until um after my grandfather passed away. I inherited a big like boxes and boxes of black and white photographs from Iran, and this was after I
Mhm.
finished undergrad in like 2013. And when I moved back home to LA, I just started scanning these photos and like,
Are these photos pre-revolution?
yeah, yeah, significant, like way, like these are, I would say when my grandmother was like in her teens, early teens and
Mhm.
20s, when she was first married to my
Mhm.
grandfather. And like in the background, I'll see like these familiar textiles, like just framed in the background of
Mhm.
these photos. And
And my mom, she was doing it at the age of
yeah, like
um,
her,
13, 14,
yeah,
embroidery. And then I used that particular fabric and bring it to the outfit.
yeah.
Remember the dress?
I think that was like really powerful for me to like have that click and realize, because I didn't, my mom would say that, or like these gowns that my mom would have around the house on a mannequin. She would be like, "I'm not going to sell this one." And I'm like, sure, I don't know, but
Mhm.
I thought I was really moved by that. And it gave me a lot of purpose actually to be like, oh, I have kind of
Mhm.
a responsibility to steward, um, these textiles that my mom still just kind of cuts up, and she's like doesn't really like, she'll just cut up these 150-year-old 180-year-old fabrics and like with kind of like very liberally, and I'll just be like, that should be preserved, that should be like the internal archivist of me, preservationist of me is like, no, it should. But I think that's part of, I think I was learning also that's part of your like process with like conversing with
Yes,
lineage and
with the
ancestry.
material.
Yeah, so I think that was
Yeah,
really
and
powerful
then
for me.
he was coming to
I,
our fashion show.
Oh yeah, that too.
And backstage.
so I want to ask about this. You have these beautiful images in the back, Ali Ressa, that are your photographs and then your mother's work. And so there's like a separate practice from the both of you, but then there's a practice that converges, which I think it's important for our audience to see multi-generational artists work together.
Mm.
I think it's important for artists to see Iranian artists who are in conversation with these vintage textiles that are kind of, in my opinion, like you said, they tell a story. They're these ancestral fabrics about a time pre-revolution, and they also, I think, y'all's specific convergence as artists is very special and really significant for, I think, audiences to witness, you know, how you work together. And I know it's sometimes amazing, not always easy. When did you all decide, and maybe you didn't have a decision, Alireza, but when did you all decide to be collaborators? Like, I want to ask that question first. Like, you were obviously, you know, Shahla, you were already asking him questions. And I do this with my son. Like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? But you were already asking him questions about your works, your pieces, the fashion. But when was like the official collaboration? Was there a moment when there was like an official collaboration?
I met a very famous artist by the name Nasser Owaisi, and I saw in his book picture of a dervish,
Whirling
Mm,
dervish,
whirling
the
dervish.
Sufi mystical
Mm,
dancers.
yeah,
yes.
I saw it that it was moving, and I was thinking about this poetry that was on the you know on the picture actually. And at the same time I decided to I love to incorporate that into my couture and fashion.
Mhm.
So I started the Rumi from that time. And I was really inspired by looking at this, and I was visualizing this could be on the textile and on the fabrics, shawl, suits. I started to do that, and my first collection was very beautiful and coming, but unfortunately wasn't. I started fabrics and calligraphy. It was a time that frowned upon, and the
Mm,
timing
mm,
that nobody respected, and nobody, they're all modernized and everything, that they don't care about the culture of Iran and poetry and everything. So when I started that, and then I decided to take it to one of the department store and sell my shawl and just present Persian culture in one of the department store. And I made an appointment in Neiman Marcus in New York, and I was very happy. I was humiliated actually by the buyer in New York, Neiman Marcus. And
mm.
it was 2 or 3 weeks after the Twin Tower.
9/11. Yeah.
Yeah, 9/11. It was 3 weeks after. And we had this appointment like long time, a month before. But unfortunately, that was the time. So they had to escort me out because they said, "Oh, these are Arabic, language and writing. We don't want that in the store." So they,
Wow.
yeah. So I was really, really disappointed uh, because they really didn't want something like that being in the store at, especially at that time, the
Yeah.
Arabic dance. And I said that this is not Arabic, actually. This is Iranian poet by the Rumi. And Rumi is like as a Shakespeare, you know. So,
Hmm.
but they disagreed and they escorted me out. And they said, we are not interested in something like that with Arabic and,
Wow.
handwriting that. I had to go through the hard. way really to promote this couture line of me.
Mm-hmm.
And especially Iranian people at that time, they were laughing on it, and they
Mm,
my first fashion show comes and they said, "Oh, these are good for Halloween parties, to wear something like that." And totally, I was disappointed. But as the time goes by, this became the most popular in the world. And actually, I start seeing other designers like John Galliano
of
and Ralph
course,
Rucci.
yes.
At the time, they started their collection in the poet in Spanish, Ralph Rucci
Mm-hmm.
writing on the, some part of them. It was like
Yeah.
a year after, I would say, that, I see after I promoted that in
Mm-hmm.
Entertainment, Style Network, and all these talking about Rumi and talking about my textile and everything. So then I see like John Galliano did some of the poets on his
Yeah.
collection, like a year after, and all of a sudden it became very popular. And then Persian, usually when they see it becomes, they start copying my
Then they like
work.
it.
They
Yes.
start doing the hard way and
Mm-hmm.
copying my style and design. And there was some store opened under, this calligraphy, and they present it in a different format.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Did you know that story, Ali Reza, around nine
Yeah,
11? And
it's heavy.
yeah,
Yeah, he
that's
was with us
intense.
actually in New York. He was
Oh,
very young, very a kid actually. Uh,
wow.
so uh, I went with my husband and Alex, because we were happy to present it to Neiman Marcus at the time. Yeah. So, um,
That's really
yeah, well,
powerful.
the time goes by and everything become popular all of a sudden.
Well, that's what's powerful about this story, and you're sharing, because I feel like people who are listening, the work oftentimes with artists who are at the forefront of art and the art world, fashion, our work is often laughed at. I think, especially if you're a woman of color, and then when a big designer picks it up and then it gets popularized, really stolen, work gets stolen, and then people see it. And I think that's really important for people who are listening, artists that are listening, to one, value your work. If you know what you're working on and if you see that work as valuable, it is valuable, and it doesn't matter actually what someone else has to say about it. And also, we live in a culture that's racist, and we live in a culture that's sexist, and we are often dealing with that in the art world and the fashion world. And I think, Shala, you're such an example of persistence, even though you've experienced these things. I want to go back to you, Ali Ressa. Ask about the first collaboration. Like, what's your first memory of collaborating? Was it designing a dress? Was it for his fashion show? I've seen you on the cover of magazines with your mom. Like, what was that first experience like? And walk us through that.
I could like speak in confidence, like where like that moment for me when I had more conviction around the collaboration as opposed to just being like, sure, I'm supporting, or like, sure, we're working together. Like, where I had more conviction and I was just like, this is very meaningful and it feels very purposeful and it feels like actually very spiritual. Like it felt,
Mm,
there were a lot of moments. You asked about like the photographs, and the ways that, a lot of it is just like layering and layering of, you know, like my great grandmother's fabrics, grandmother's fabrics, my mom's fabrics, and then the ways my mom has appropriated my grandmother's fabrics or my great grandmother's fabrics into the contemporary. And then you have the great grandson, photographing all of that and collapsing that into one singular image. And I thought, like, that was so special for me. I think like
mm,
just like that process, but I think it was really after that kind of revelation where I kind of better understood what my mom was doing and move through it with, yeah, it's funny because I see it more now in retrospect how much it was like very spirit driven and like very much I was just like, all right, cool, I'm having a conversation with not just my mom, but
Mm-hmm.
many other ancestors through the process, and that's felt. But that was like I think like 2014, when I was just starting to take more photographs and just trying also build stories out of it, like trying to construct, like better also understand, like a lot of it is exploratory. I'm trying to better understand what my mom is doing through the like a studio process, and
Yeah.
we're doing it together where I'm like, can I photograph this dress, can I cast this person to wear it, can yeah, these things. So
Can you tell us more about the image behind you, this one, and what you did there and what you all did there? Can you talk about that, Ali Reza?
this is part of a series, three iterations of a series of works that I went to photograph my mom's archives from the 90s. I went like three different times. One of them was Heritage Archives. Next, the following one was Matriarchs Archives. This one was behind us is Meditations Archives. And it was exploring these archives of my mother's work that she did in the 90s and creating small kind of narratives that we would collaborate together. This one was really documenting the garments themselves. We cast someone who actually grew up in the same, whose daughter, sorry, let me like reorient that actually. It's one of the individuals that my mother would grow up with in adjacent to a village in Iran by the name of Sangasar. Would their daughter would I would cast their daughter as part of this image, and we kind of began looking for a place that had the same also ethos of that village. There's so much I can do as a creative that has never been to Iran. So like
Mm-hmm.
through these sort of oral understandings of what this landscape looks like, went and found a space that emulates that, and um,
Mm-hmm.
produced an image and just shot it with. I hope that gives context and better
Wonderful.
understanding.
I want to hear about what you're working on. Tell us.
It's nice to think of that image behind us because I feel like it's ongoing in a process of right now. Shahla and I are collecting almost informal oral history archives of that same city of Sangasar to better understand the landscape, the geography, the climate, the community, how, and what it was organized, and as a community, and kind of correlate that to some of the contemporary work that I'm doing around research in the Central Valley and water rights in the Central Valley. So, like creating these relationships between Iran, this geography that my mother, she can't particularly go back to, I've never been to, and this almost like mythical portal of sorts in the Central Valley that I'm exploring and studying
Mm-hmm.
through my practice and kind of bridging that together.
I love that. Thank you so much. A question for the both of you. Where do you see spirituality in your work? Because the Sufi, writing Sufi scripts on clothing is so deeply spiritual. How do you see spirituality impacting both your practices? And how do you see, um, you've talked about ancestry a lot. How do you see that impacting your practices? And what does it mean for you as an artist, especially during this time when there's so much happening in the world? How do you think about your work in relationship to world events? So it's two questions: spirituality and your practice, and also how do you think about the world events and your practice?
Well, at the time when I left Iran, I just wanted to say that, with Baha'i persecution, that was very, very hard for the family. So we had to all get out in from Iran. So yeah, the most important things that my mom and grandma they thought about it, it was only the textile, the fabric. So I wanted actually to bring up and again I know that many new designers they're doing what I I did at the 90s, but still I'm hoping to have my new collection again with the original Rumi and
Mm,
Sadi and Hafiz again, and with my um, uh, ancestor fabrics again, and to promote it again and come as a new collection, because
mm,
some of these were not shown before. So
mm.
it's a new version actually of this collection that is coming, and we're going to promote Rumi, Sadi, and Hafiz again um, in a very
Beautiful.
strong way, and promote that original calligraphy from Shahla Dorriz.
That's so beautiful. I think we need words from Rumi right now. We need poetry right now. We need that kind of imaginative relationship to clothes and fashion for the world. So I'm so excited about this new collection. Alyssa, what about you? How do you see spirituality and ancestry like impacting your
A
work?
lot of our ancestors, as a lot of communities of color have grown up with, and knowing that, I guess, pulling at those narratives and stories of indigenous community hubs and localized hubs, and understanding like what through this oral history archive that I've been working on with my mom about this community, and she's sharing with me, like, the weavers would be sitting in community, like weaving. They'd be, herding the goats and the sheep, and they would go there and skin it, and bring, like, spin the thread, spin the thread and through a spindle, and start weaving. And I feel like in this moment, how can we move towards these sort of localized
Mm,
weaving circles together? It doesn't have to be physical weaving, but it's
Yeah,
like, I
yes.
think, like, these allegories of collectivizing and creating one head together and moving as one head. And you know we're moving as one head against empire. We
Mm,
all bind our heads together and move together toward, like, against empire by creating these weaving circles together in community hubs. I feel like that is listening to ancestors teaches me and teaches us. I'm very critical of the garment industry, and, like, I feel like that is one form of resistance in the garment industry by localized hubs,
yeah.
in garment production, but also in the ways that we resist empire in other ways. Myself, you, Patrisse, and our other co-founder, Noe Olivas, founded an arts organization, the Crenshaw Dairy Mart. And, we have these tenets and value systems around PIC abolition, healing justice, and ancestry in the community of Inglewood, and, like, creating these core programs and flagship programs that are around economic autonomy in Inglewood, in that community. And I believe so much in that, and, like, localized hubs that arts can exist, textile can exist, agricultural. We're working on an exhibition in the fall, Free the Land, Free the People. And it's so much of it is about economic autonomy, and also agricultural autonomy, historically in Black-led communities. So I feel like we
Mhm.
could learn so much from that, from ancestors and elders
Mm.
across Black communities and communities of color, like, in creating these localized hubs. I truly, like, I feel like that's one of the largest lessons that we have to learn, so that we organize together as community members.
Yes, that was such a beautiful response. I want to ask you to one last question around how do you inspire each other? Shala, how does your son inspire you and the work that you're doing? And Alireza, how does your mom inspire you and the work that you're doing? I've seen you all, ideate together on stuff, and it's just such a it's like beautiful madness between you all. And I just wonder, how do you all inspire each other? What is one thing or multiple things that inspires you and you in each other's practice?
What is inspiring you? Well, he's been inspiring me my whole life, and he actually modernized Shahla Dorriz,
Mm.
and we had fashion shows recently together. I mean, a few times that he did, and it was really, really amazing. And we are going to have a big fashion show together
We are.
in the month of what, about September or October
I don't know about it, but yeah.
of 2024, after your project that is coming up, and we are
Mhm.
custom designing for him for the project that I don't know if I'm sure you know, Patrice. What
Mhm.
project is it? He doesn't want to talk about it now, but I am I am costume designing for him. This the art of Sangesar, all
Mm.
this village clothing and everything that is going to happen in his film. Yeah, he's been really inspiring me, and whatever the show that we had together, making different kind and modernizing my design. And
Mm.
uh, I think this brand never go out of style with Alexandre, because if they think that Charlotte Doris with Alexandre going out, no, never. Um, he's been really educated and knows exactly what he's doing. We both creative director, and he's my also creative director of the brand, and I'm proud of him. And I think we both collaborate. The collaboration between me and him is really working out. Now, what do you think?
It is really like humbling to move through my mother has like created as like through the lens of a preservationist or an archivist. I am neither by any means, but I feel like I'm
Mhm.
often just like, this needs to be preserved, this needs to be archived, and then she's like, no, I'm just gonna cut it up. But I am very inspired by your ability to just kind of like, I'm gonna cut this up. Can I cut it up? And I'm like, wait, no, don't do it yet. Like, let me like at
Mhm.
least document it, or let me at least like have it like, I don't know, but I feel that I am inspired by that the playfulness of it, and I feel like the more I spend time in revisiting collaboration with her, I've been very intentional in how this process can be deeply healing, like be a deeply healing journey and explorative journey around like collaboration with ancestors. Like I feel that,
Mm.
and that feels very inspiring. It feels like a very inspiring invitation to have that luxury and have that like invitation by her, by like my mother, but also by like ancestors to just be like, have fun with this, like let's be playful.
Mm.
That is like a very beautiful gift that I
Actually, it was like, I feel like I have a lot of things to say, which I wasn't prepared for this podcast. I I need, I still have a lot of things that I want to talk about.
Of
The
course.
ancestors, and our cultural fabrics and
Mm.
designs and everything. And we always wanted to be unique. We are looking forward for this new exhibition that we have together in a few
Mhm.
months. I always wanted to be doing something different than others.
Well, you are. And guess what? This podcast will exist for a long time, so we can have you all back on and
Wow.
you could talk about your work. This is not a one and done. We can do this
Oh,
multiple
I
times.
love that. Thank because I forgot whatever I wanted to say. But
You said everything beautifully. This
uh,
was this was a this was a very beautiful time together, and
oh, thank you.
um, I'm just grateful for the both of you, and your family to me, and your collaboration is super special, and we're lucky to have you on Artist to Artist. So much of the work that we're doing on this podcast is to share the work of artists who are at the forefront, who have changed history, who've changed fashion, who've changed art, who are reshaping what that world looks like. And I think that's exactly what you both are doing, and together as collaborators, but also separately in the work that you're doing. You're both very innovative. I know you very well, Alireza, obviously, and Shahla, I know you because of your son, and the both of you are incredibly innovative. And it's always exciting to hear about the work that you're
Or
doing.
we can
So our
do
listeners
another
get to
interview
hear that.
soon, like
Yeah,
around our exhibition and everything.
perfect. Done.
Well,
Well, thank you both so
you're
much for joining.
invited.
Oh, I'll be there. Thank you both so much for joining Artist to Artist. I love you both so much,
I
and
love you.
we'll talk
Yeah.
soon.